In ancient imagination,
Imagine a community where honest people work together to fix brokenness, where the people you encounter love you for real and
the mountain was where the
you love them just the same. How would living in that kind of community affect the way you think, the way you feel, the way you act? We're doing a series on parables. In our verse today, Jesus offers a parable inviting us into that kind of community. In Matthew 5:14, Jesus says to his followers, "You are the light of the world. A city on a hill cannot be hidden." Now, the Greek word for hill can also mean mountain. And mountains in the ancient mindset were the place where heaven and earth intersect. It's the place where people would go to encounter the gods. The Hebrews understood mountains as these sacred spaces, unique spaces where God desired to dwell with humanity as partners. Abraham goes up on a mountain and experiences divine testing and blessing. God invites Moses to go up on a mountain to meet with him and gives him instructions. But the prophet Isaiah uses mountain imagery to dream of a day where the heaven touching earth space would expand beyond the mountain, where God's kingdom would fill the entire world, dispelling the darkness of evil. All of this makes Jesus' teaching truly wild. Jesus is saying that heaven intersects with earth through people, through us. So when Jesus calls his followers the light of the world and a city on a mountain, what he is saying is that his followers become mobile mountains, bringing the mountaintop experience to the world. His followers become communities, cities, creating pockets of heaven and earth wherever they're at. We do this by letting go of the old ways of fighting our enemies and picking up the new ways of Jesus, by caring for those around us, doing right by our neighbor, and loving people patiently. When we do this, God's light shines through our community, dispelling the darkness. So may we be so committed to the way of Jesus, becoming mobile mountain communities, partner with God to bring God's heavenly kingdom here on earth. This teaching of Jesus is one example of mountains in the Bible. To learn more, you can watch Bible Project's newest video, The Mountain, or check out the reading plan right here.
sky touched down on the land. In ancient imagination, the mountain was where the sky touched down on the land, a place where God's wisdom and power and very presence could be found. The Bible begins with God placing humanity on that kind of mountain, appointing them to oversee the land and fill it with God's blessing. To remain on the mountain, they must trust in God's wisdom, but humanity chooses their own wisdom instead. So they are driven from the mountain. And instead of God's abundance, they fill the land with violence. But God promises to restore his blessing to all nations through the offspring of one infertile couple. He invites Abraham up to the mountain to give him this blessing. But first, Abraham must give up his promised son. The only way back up the mountain is to lose what we call life and receive back the true life that God offers. Abraham's family grows, and God invites all of them up onto the mountain. But from below, the mountain is frightening. Only Moses goes up to learn God's wisdom. So God's mountain presence comes down instead, to live in Israel's camp. Now the mountain travels with them, and they're invited to live by God's wisdom wherever they go. When King David establishes a city on a tall hill, Israel's prophets imagine that this could truly become the mountain, with a king who would rule in God's wisdom and restore the blessing to all the nations. But once again, Israel spirals into violence and is driven from their home. And so, God comes down instead, enters the world as one of us, teaching his followers how to live by God's wisdom, sharing the abundance of God's mountain with Israel and with the nations. And when Jesus faces his own choice, he trusts God, his Father, with his very life. And through his surrender, the risen Jesus becomes the place where heaven and earth meet. He is enthroned on the heavenly mountain, offering life and wisdom and power, And he invites his people to ascend, to choose God's wisdom, so that through them God's blessing can flow out to all the land.
Our mission at Bible Project is to help